Good morning, everyone. Today, the Hindu newspaper, 15th of March 2021. The first article is Center likely to allow residents to fill their NPR details online. And this, the no biometrics or documents will be collected, as stated by the Home Ministry. Here, a month before the census, that is NPR begins, the residents will be given an option to enter details online. A reference code will be generated that will be provided to the enumerator. After entering the code on the mobile app, the details will be displayed and further updated in the database. Okay, as per this population register is concerned, it had to be completed by March 5th of this year, and it had to be started on April 1st of last year, that is 2020. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, it was postponed indefinitely. And earlier, as per what we call as notification on what we call as Jan 21st, as reported on by Hindu, the second phase was given an option for the residents to self-enumerate online. Okay, but now 1 month prior to the actual phase of NPR, which begins now, all the citizens can now update their details online. So this is with respect to this article. 8 editorial, Forestalling a Cyber Pearl Harbour. As per the recent revelations by US-based cybersecurity firm Recorded Future, which states that China is targeting cyber attacks on India's critical infrastructure with respect to power sector is concerned, which was coinciding with Eastern Ladakh intrusions, which happened in 2020. And also, there's a needless controversy in linking this particular event with respect to October 2020 blackout, Mumbai blackout. And in this particular perspective, in this particular issue, China used network infrastructure known as Axiomatica Symptote, whose servers are known to be used by Red Echo, that is the China's linked activity group, and they facilitated the employment of malware known as ShadowPad. ShadowPad is a backdoor entry Trojan malware, which creates a secret path from the targeted system to a command and control server to extract the information. And these kind of instances should not forestall a potential cyber Pearl Harbor. This is what the writer intends to tell. And the offensive China. This is not the first instance which has happened. Even if you see the Chinese group named Hafinam, which has been identified responsible for this kind of breaches, exploited a series of flaws in the Microsoft servers, enabling attackers to gain total remote control over affected systems. Each hour of the day, thousands of Microsoft servers were compromised as a result till the breach was discovered. So they are using the loopholes which the Western companies, that is the software companies which have created, using those loopholes, turning the matter instead. Companies in the Western world are now receiving such kind of antics, having left vulnerabilities for future exploitation. So they are exploiting the loopholes in the software for their own purpose or ambitions. And also they are targeting the vaccine distribution, COVID-19 vaccine distribution supply chain infrastructure as well. And this is not the first time the countries are engaged in cyber warfare. There is recent example with respect to US elections, 2016 presidential elections, wherein Russia was blamed for cyber attacks. And also recent one being in late 2020, the data breaches of US federal government involving defense, Department of Defense, Energy, State, Homeland Security, Treasury, etc. Was also blamed on Russia. And even the Ukraine power grid was also attacked in 2016, wherein the professional cybersecurity attackers planned for months together and implemented the attack. So in this intervening 5 years, the sophistication of technology has increased a lot. So India has to take proper steps to counteract such kind of issues in the near future, which is going to be for sure, because cybersecurity threat is one of the daunting threats for the global peace. As you can see, China has forged a nexus between technology, authoritarianism, global ambitions, and it is determined to transform the global order to advance its interests. Okay, and cyber is one of the biggest China's threat vectors employed against countries that do not fall in China's worldview. And in 2021, defense budget of China, which is amounting to $209 billion, has given special weightage to strategic support forces, which embraces cyber warfare. So cyber attack and cyber warfare are here to stay, and we have to take proper steps in counteracting the same. This is what M.K. Narayan, a former NSA, a former governor of West Bengal, has been stated in this particular article. Summit spirit, the Quad broadens India's interest on its geopolitical horizons. In this particular article, the virtual summit which taken place last week with respect to Quad is concerned. It talks about the outcomes announced by U.S. President Joe Biden, Prime Minister Modi, Morrison and Suga, the Japanese and Australian counterparts, which includes vaccine initiative and joint working through for critical technology and as well as climate change. And they have an ambitious deadline of billion vaccines by the end of 2022 with Make in India, with US technology and Japanese funding and Australian distribution networks or logistics to reach as many as Indo-Pacific countries as possible. And the 4 Quad countries will also ensure emission reductions based on Paris Accord as well as cooperate on technology of supply chains, 5G network and biotechnology. And they called for the first, called as the Spirit of Quad, a joint article with the 4 leaders that committed to an open Pacific free from coercion. Okay, that is Indo-Pacific should be free from coercion. And later this year they'll also be meeting on the grounds of G7 summit. And America has been pushing diplomatic tagline with America is back as a global leadership, reaffirming regional allies and taking on growing challenges from China. And even all the countries are interested to take Quad on a deeper level. With respect to Australia and Japan are also taking Quad on a deeper levels of cooperation, and India also engaging Quad after a 10th year at LAC. And it would be a very mistake to portray Quad summit as antagonistic to China, because all the countries are more or less having ties with China in one way or the other. In the coming Thursday, there's an Anchorage, Alaska. There's a meet between Beijing top diplomats with respect to US diplomats, and also Japan and Australia also having ties with China, as China is one of the biggest trading partners. And also when the 15-member RCEP kicks in, this is bound to grow. And also India has also ties with China on its various multilateral forums like BRICS and SEO, sidelining recent LAC controversies. Okay, so keeping these kind of interests in mind, we have to see Quad as a force for global good rather than which is created to antagonize China or to see it as a counteract to China. Okay, and next article, the job crunch and the growing fires of nativism. Unless states in India have the autonomy to create jobs, they will only resort to reserving existing jobs to the locals. This particular article intends to talk about the reservation of jobs for locals with respect to recent Haryana government's initiative with respect to providing jobs to the local Haryanis first before hiring people from the outside state. And this is based on the reports based on data as per the data from Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy, which states that unemployment rate in Haryana is highest of all states in India, and also states that 80% of the women in Haryana who want to work can't find jobs. Okay, and this is not only akin to Haryana alone, and there are slews of other states also following this particular methods to wooing the jobless youths. The first is the Jharkhand state has also reserved job for Jharkhand residents, and DMK's election manifesto is reserving jobs for Tamils. Okay, and this has obviously attracted criticisms from the economists and commentators as it militates against the liberal idea of free economy, focus on creating more jobs and not reserving. What the states are proposing, that is reserving jobs will end unemployment, is a false binary, because creation of jobs is a interplay of multitude of factors. Okay, suppose say the writer has given an excellent example with respect to Amazon. Like suppose Amazon wants to invest in Indian economy, seeing the robust growth and to expand its operations in India. The particular state chief minister doesn't have any say with respect to larger economy as such. Okay, so Amazon decides to invest in Indian economy when Indian economy is robust and it has various other expectations that it can create business. And for this, Amazon needs abundant high quality skilled and unskilled labor, land at affordable prices, uninterrupted supply of electricity, water, and ease of business facilities for its expansion. In these kind of parameters, state governments can compete with each other to woo Amazon to set up operations in these particular states. This is what happened in 2018 when in America, when Amazon decided to build a second headquarters. Various states, or what you call it as, competed against each other to woo Amazon to set up their second headquarters in their particular state. And here, with the recent introduction of GST, the state governments have lost their fiscal autonomy with respect to providing tax concession, and the only area in which they can leverage their potential is use of land and local infrastructure to attract businesses. So on these grounds, they have to play a role in creating attracting businesses so as to create jobs. And here it also creates an agglomeration effect. The ecosystem of supply chain talent, good living conditions, and so on also plays a critical role in attracting businesses as well. A well-established supply chain talent, a well-established network of suppliers, people, schools, etc. is a great advantage to attract even more businesses than the state that are left behind. Like suppose there is an example with respect to what you call it as Walmart has already been established in Karnataka, and there is already an agglomeration effect with respect to various other dimensions which have been, or the parameters which has already been established in the state of Karnataka. So Amazon would be willing to invest in the state of Karnataka rather than other states, considering the factors of the agglomeration effect which has already been established in Karnataka due to Walmart or any of the dimensions. And here the 3-3 danger, this is the phenomena evident in India's increasing economic divergence among its states. 3-3 effect is nothing but three richest large states, that is Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, are 3 times richer than the 3 poorest states, that is Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. 3 richest states, 3 times richer than the 3 poorest states, compared to 1.4 times in 1970, and the gap is going to grow. The gap is only going to widen rapidly. Okay. And these kind of providing jobs to local residents is creating a sense of subnationalism, which is not good for the overall development of India is concerned. And even the wider interstate inequality, that is rich states getting richer, economic development model, impeding demographic disaster, and shrinking fiscal autonomy for elected governments in a political and culturally diverse democracy will inevitably propagate nativistic and subnationalism among various states of India. So on these grounds, it is not good to reserve job for local residents. Rather, states should compete with each other to provide good infrastructure or create an agglomeration effects to attract businesses and to end unemployment malaise in the society. Next article, Future Force for Future Wars, page 9. In this particular article, the recent interactions of Prime Minister Narendra Modi with top military leadership calls for top commanders to develop military into a future force while taking note of the rapidly changing technological landscape, and also calls for focuses on breaking down civil military silos and also expediting the speed of decision making besides shedding the legacy system. The Prime Minister is telling, because of the changing nature of war in the recent times. Earlier, war used to be easy to define, and we could be confident enough to tell when we are at war or peace, or we can identify our arch enemy or any of the enemies, and at what front, or at which front we are fighting the war. But now, the definition of modern war has changed with respect to including of various other terminologies like hyper, hybrid, compound, non-linear, fourth generation, next generation, and contactless. So in this particular situations, it is very important to be at the forefront in the changing technological landscape dimensions is concerned. And also here the US example has been quoted with respect to, for peace to prevail or to be enforced, development of future force capability based on third of offset strategy was announced by US in 2014. that it consists of cutting-edge technology, exploration of new operational concepts for utilizing such technology, and retaining the best and brightest in human resource to achieve the objective of peace. And here it also promising on the use of technology on various areas like robotics, system autonomy, miniaturization, big data, and advanced manufacturing. And it provides for autonomous learning systems, collaborative decision making between humans and machines, assisted human operations, advanced manned and unmanned systems operations, network enabled autonomous weapons, and high speed projectiles. Technologies like these can be expected to cause unprecedented effects and disruptions by impacting cognitive and perceptual domains through weapons, soldiers, robots, and cyborgs. Tactical actions undertaken through these can be expected to cause strategic effects. So here the US 2014 third of such strategy, which consists of using cutting-edge technology, operational concepts, utilizing technology, and retaining the best and brightest for obtaining the objective of peace. And they use various other technological measures in the areas of robotics, system autonomy, miniaturization, big data, advanced manufacturing, etc., and humans and machine learning, autonomous learning, and manned and unmanned systems, operation networks, and using robots and weapons, and even cyborgs. So the landscape of warfare is totally changing, and we have to prepare for such. And in the previous article, we have talked about recent China's defense budget is around $209 billion, which is as giving more emphasis on strategic special forces, which has cyber warfare as its main component. So in this changing dynamics of warfare, we have to be at the forefront, and even to prepare for accelerated future wars, they need to master hybridized effects of warfare that our adversaries are increasingly adopting. This was told by Chief of Defense Staff General Bipin Rawat, that we have to accelerate master the hybridized effect of warfare that our adversaries are also already starting to adopt. And even the Prime Minister also talked about breaking the civil military silos, that is, the relationship between the civilians and those who fight on their behalf should be changed. So this is what it entails about breaking the civil military silos. Okay. The surge of crude oil prices, page 11. The price of Brent crude has crossed $70 per barrel, and even the petrol prices in India have crossed ₹100 psychological barrier. And here the writer throws light on statistical data with respect to India imported around 85% of oil requirements and 53% of the gas to meet its 2019-2020 needs. And even though there was a Benin rupee dollar generally stable relationship, and the primary reason for such a price rise is the tax component, which has been included in the prices of the petrol. And the major reason for the increase in tax rates, as we all know, is due to the COVID-19 relief packages which the governments have released in recent months. And the other reasons which amounting for the higher prices are Saudi Arabia's raising prices for its shipments to US and Asia, and OPEC plus countries cutting productions, and high oil import by India, that is 3-year high in December 2020. Okay. And deregulation of prices of petrol and diesel prices. And what are the impacts on India? The price rise has impacted CAD, that is obviously current account deficit is going to increase, and even though we have recently come out of the technical recession, stagflation is still persisting. This rise in price will create an inflationary pressure. And if this particular trend of rising prices continues, the company will be forced to cut taxes, and transportation costs will increase, and in turn will also lead to increase in various other essential commodities like vegetables and milk, and various other food components. Prices will also increase. And there is a general impression that bringing petrol and diesel under GST ambits, the prices would reduce. But at this particular rate of earnings or revenues which the government gets through through petrol and diesel, the GST rates should be aligned at even higher than 100%. So this is going to increase the prices even more further. And what are the positive aspects which we can take away from this particular rise in petrol is oil companies stocks might rise, so we can make profit out of it. And secondly, the remittances from Persian Gulf could increase, creating differential petrol supply capacity, and finding alternative sources of energy will be what called as a viable option for sustainable development. So crisis or the necessity is the mother of invention, or the crisis. The next article, the center reconstitutes panel on mythical Sarasvati river. The center has reconstituted an advisory committee to track plans for studying the mythical Sarasvati river for next 2 years. The earlier panel's term ended in 2019. The ASI, that is Archaeological Survey of India, on March 10th issued notifications for reconstitution of advisory committee for the multidisciplinary study of the river Sarasvati. The ASI had first headed the committee on December 28, 2017 for a period of 2 years. The next article is about India and Uzbek exercise that is called as Dastlik 2 at Raniket. Uzbek troops learned the handling of SIG 716 assault rifles recently inducted to service by the army. Okay. And in this particular article, it's one of the motivating factors. That is Trilochan Naik from Odisha, a farmer from Odisha who was not good in studies, is on a never-ending pursuit of courses. There is a spirit of perseverance. 41 attempts over 2 decades to pass class 10, 13 bids in 14 years to clear class 12, and 3 years each for graduation and law degrees. And educational journey of this sexagenarian over 6 decades is remarkable in itself. And recently he has completed his law degree in December 2020. Okay. It took 14 years for Mr. Naik to clear class 12th examination in 2011. So these kind of never die spirit is always a motivating factors for everyone who quit on their life because they have not achieved. Age is just a factor, and attempts is also just a factor. With respect to this 41 attempts over 2 decades, it's really a daunting task. World page 14, China North Korea threat looms as Blinken Austin head to Asia. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin heading to Japan and South Korea for 4 days of talks starting on Monday. And even Mr. Biden's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan will be meeting Chinese official in Anchorage in Alaska on Thursday. Here the trips intends to hopes that the calming and even kneeled approach to ties with Tokyo and Seoul after 4 years of transactional and often temperamental relationship under Donald Trump. That is transactional relationship. If you do this, I'll do this. This is what Donald Trump told. And even the US diplomatic theme now is America is back with respect to respecting regional allies and even various other agreements, that is re-entering Paris Agreement. And even the virtual meet of Quad also expressed various other dimensions of cooperations with respect to vaccine cooperation, then critical infrastructure or critical technology cooperation, and the next being the climate change. So here America is regrouping its allies with respect to on a global world order to maintain peace and stability in all respects, that is trade and even in climate change and all domains of the world. And even it's also like as part of that efforts to reduce the risk of escalations, the senior officials said efforts have been made to connect with the North Koreans since mid-February, including through what is known as New York Channel. We have not really received any response. Okay. So here in this particular article, that is American diplomacy is back with respect to reshaping the global world order to maintain peace and security for all. And the next article is Ireland, Italy region halt AstraZeneca shots. Ireland has become the latest country to suspend the use of AstraZeneca. There has been concerns with respect to blood clots after administering that is AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Several countries including Denmark, Norway and Bulgaria have suspended the use of this particular vaccine. And the next article is Sri Lanka asks Amazon not to sell flag themed items. That is, Amazon is using Sri Lankan flags on various other goods like briefs and innerwears. So because Sri Lanka has raised apprehensions with respect to the use of its flag on various undergarments and also Buddhist symbols. Okay, and the next article is crypto investors buy $70 million digital artwork. This particular article is very much important with respect to rise and the growth of cryptocurrencies. And if you have seen the recent Supreme Court judges with respect to when RBI had banned the trading of cryptocurrencies, but Supreme Court struck down on that, and in near future the regulations for cryptocurrencies will be started, and there are various countries coming out with their own digital crypto legal tender money. Okay, and here the buyer of 70 million digital only artwork was named. The investor who bought that particular article by the pseudonym Meta Cohen. Okay, the work is in the form of a new kind of digital asset known as non-fungible token. This means that it is authenticated by blockchain, which certifies its originality and ownership. So just by blocking cryptocurrencies, you can't be averse in using the latest technology of blockchain, because blockchain is very much important with respect to COVID-19 supply chain, and even this particular assets, and even geotagging of land properties in India. So we can't forego of using blockchain. So better regulations of such technology should be brought in place.